Welcome to Untamed Blossoms, the podcast where we celebrate the untamed journey of womanhood. Here, we tell the stories of incredible women who have embraced their authenticity, inspiring others to do the same.
From entrepreneurs to artists, activists to adventurers, we share triumphs, challenges, and the beauty of self-discovery. These are the stories of women blazing their own trails, breaking free, and blooming unapologetically.
Join us to connect, be inspired, and celebrate the power of women's stories. Together, let's rewrite the rules and embrace our wildness.
Welcome to Untamed Blossoms. I'm your host, Amanda. It is a frigid day here. And another one. DJ Khaled style. Welcome to the pod.
Hey, thank you guys.
How are you today?
Hey, I'm doing good. And in memoriam of David Lynch, I'm drinking my coffee from Tweed's Cafe in North Bend, Washington, where Twin Peaks was filmed, where part of Twin Peaks was filmed.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. When did you go there? Or did you go there or just order
I
it?
did. Yeah, I did. I was on a clinical rotation back in 2018. I was in Portland, and then I needed to go up to Renton, Washington. And at the time, that's when my husband and I were watching Twin Peaks: The Return. And I lived within driving distance of a good deal of Twin Peaks.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
A little bit about myself. So, you guys found me because I'm a physical therapist by trade. I think, Amanda, you found me. And I also say that I'm a creative because in 2023, I kind of had the realization that, and this was like forced because I was recovering from major surgery, from knee replacement surgery. And I realized that my creative tendencies were finally bubbling to the surface, and I've been following that since. And so I work a day job, and I also, like, this morning was devoted to creative stuff.
Love that.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay, so David Lynch, the director, passed away, between when I saw you guys first. He is kind of lighting a fire under my butt to get back into the practice of meditation and to help catch ideas. And so what I've been doing, I write a piece on Substack, and it's really something where I want to get on Substack and get off pretty quickly without putting a whole lot of thought into it, but also kind of develop the idea, and kind of the idea that I kind of have, it's kind of my hook to, like, catch other ideas. It's about railroads and the Transcontinental Railroad in the U.S., oddly enough. And it's being kind of useful. But so I did some writing this morning, and I also practice piano because I've been taking piano lessons for the last year, studying them, starting to learn jazz,
Yeah,
So,
I did find you on Substack too. And I looked through and read some of your writing, and I think it's an awesome platform. I didn't know anything about it until you had mentioned it, actually. So you are what prompted me to create my own account and to take a look.
awesome.
And it is very interesting. I'm really enjoying it.
Well, good. And it looks like it has so much flexibility to it, because
Yeah.
I discovered it. I follow historian Heather Cox Richardson, and she moved to that platform, and I subscribe to her Letters from an American. And then I've been seeing how Substack has been rolling out, if you want to do live stream or record video, if you want to monetize or not monetize. You can even turn off if you don't want AI to look at your content as well.
Yeah.
So it's very flexible. I feel like it has a little bit more control than what I see on the other platforms right now, which I
And
really
I also think creative protection, right? Because there's so
like.
much, I don't know if you've observed, but like on TikTok and other platforms, when people are creating, AI unfortunately can take some of that information, help spread it to other people to be able to use some of that creative property that's been put out there. So,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, and kind of oddly enough, I told my husband and I were having this discussion this morning because he's thinking about stuff and I'm thinking about stuff, and I said that he and I we're blessed with anonymity,
Mhm.
and I'm not a huge fan of Dave Chappelle. I did watch his monologue on SNL. um, what he I was willing to listen to what he had to say, right? And he said being famous right now, he said it's not fun to be famous anymore. It's like, okay, Dave Chappelle. But he said what it feels like is, the bombs are going off behind you and you have to pretend like it's not, like,
Yeah.
and I kind of
Yeah.
get that. And yeah, so my husband and I are blessed with anonymity. So
Yeah.
I can do what I want, and there aren't expectations. People don't care. People aren't relying on it, so the ideas can develop.
Totally.
So Gina, the last time we talked to you, I would like for you to back up and kind of, what we said about you is that we're really impressed by your ability to pivot in your lifetime, that you've really embraced change and really leaned into just listening to yourself and moving from, things that weren't serving you into new things. And so I would like for you to go back and talk maybe about growing up in school and then, just highlights of how your career sort of transitioned as you got older and what led you into some of the career paths that you chose, and just kind of give people a background on you.
Yeah, well, the background, what the good things that I remember about my childhood were my records that I used to listen to, and like the people who would share music with me, such as my grandma and my aunt, who, one day when I was a teenager decided I needed to listen to Bob Dylan. And we sat down and we listened to Bob Dylan. By golly. I love Bob Dylan.
Right.
Um, So I've always had, like this lifelong music means a lot to me. Right. And so I also needed to play the trumpet. I think I needed to play piano, but I also needed to play the trumpet. And I finally got the chance in fifth grade, I think it was, when this is the time you start band. And I, did that and I enjoyed it. And at the same time as I was growing up, there was kind of this dawning realization that I was suffering from more anxiety. I had always like had anxiety, like running in the background, for many reasons, we don't need to really dive into it right here. Um, And then by high school, I was also kind of realizing that, my family situation wasn't preparing me to be able to live on my own, which was really, really freaking scary. Right.
Yeah.
And I also I was starting to have panic attacks by high school. Right. And so this is the time when, like practicing music was supposed to be paying off. And, I was in high school band, marching band and things like that. And instead of, being like fun, it was terrifying. And it kind of came to a head in band camp. We didn't go away to camp. We just stayed, at the high school practice field all
Like a
day
day
in
camp.
the
Yeah, yeah.
summer. Yeah. And I just remember I was terrified of even playing in front of people. And, I just I struggled through marching band one year, and year two, I needed to quit. So
Mm.
all that love of music and practice and this, that, and the other, I had to give it up, which
Was it
was
like,
really, really sad. Yeah.
and was it more like the fear of like the performance of not like doing well, or was it just the inherent anxiety?
It was inherent anxiety, but also like a deep fear of humiliation too.
Oh.
And I remember, this was kind of a moment where it was really, really painful at the time. And looking back, there was one guy who, I remember we have to, tune our instruments, right? And so I was playing the notes, that you use to tune a trumpet, and I couldn't even get the notes out. And everybody laughed, right?
Mhm.
And there was one guy, and I forget his name, who he was a French horn player, and he said she sounds nervous, and he was the only one who got it.
Yeah.
Looking back, it was really rough, but it's like at the same time, someone saw what was going on,
Yeah.
which is pretty interesting. And so, like my life, I've lived it, from adulthood on, trying to, like being so desperate to be healthy and happy, like going through therapy and this, that, and the other. And it's been reflected in the different jobs I've done, because I didn't even have a strong enough sense of self to be able to explore like different things. It was survival, and kind of the ways that I needed to survive at the time. And as an adult, I was able, finally in a space that was safe enough where I could do different things. Still, I felt like, I was really adrift and didn't have a purpose until, fairly recently. We're talking, I'm 58 now, and just over a decade ago, um, I have chronic back pain. I live with chronic back pain. I was seeing a physical therapist, and I thought, that's a way to help people. And then it kind of became, in for a penny, in for a pound. I started out as a licensed PT assistant, at least, um, I already had a bachelor's degree. It was going back, to get like the associate's degree and get a license for that, because, I'm not a spring chicken anymore. But then I realized, no, I really need to be a PT. I want to be the one in charge, because I knew I could do the things. Well, guess what? It's a doctorate degree now.
Yeah.
It used to
Yeah.
be a bachelor's degree.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Back to school.
Back to school. So I did that, and it kind of led me to the space I'm at now. And again, not a spring chicken. A couple of years ago, I started having really, really severe arthritis pain in my knees. And my buddy, PT that I was working with, we had the discussion, saying, I think you're ready for knee replacements. I'm like, oh man. And I think waited another year after that, because I know what's involved. I know The rehab, it's a very serious surgery. The rehab, it's a very, it's a very routine surgery. Surgeons know how to do it well, do it, with minimal, disruption to everything around the knee, but still, it's your knee. You have to rehab from it, you know, uh, at the
Big
bare
surgery.
minimum 3 months. And, I got back to feeling normal a year after that. Like it was these are my knees,
Yeah.
these are my knees now.
I do recall that you dabbled in roller derby. Is that right?
Yeah, I can't say I have the most sense, So, um, I used to skate. I skated a couple of years for the Ohio Roller Girls, they were called at the time. Now they're Ohio Roller Derby, to be more inclusive. So I did that. I was on the B team. I was okay, and I also used to do things like CrossFit.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so maybe not the most sense, you know.
I did a few things that might have been hard on your body. It's
A
fine.
little, yeah, a little bit, yeah.
When we're young, we do those things. And then later you're
Right,
like, "Oh, wow, that might
or
have not been
middle
fun."
aged even, yeah.
I think a lot of people think about going to school or think about changing career. I would say anytime 30 and older and think, oh my gosh, I can't do that. I don't want to do that. That would be a whole massive change. Why would I go through that? Right. And it can really cause people to be frozen in that fear of change. Can you talk to us about how you made that decision and what you felt like it would bring to your life to do that, regardless of how much change that would bring?
Yeah, I have to be honest, because um my husband and I were, responsible for each other, but we also don't have kids. We have cats. We have birds. Um so I was able to, my program required me to work, like so many hours per week, because it was part of my homework. So I could do that, and then I could travel to where my program is. Thank God it's in Ohio, right? But I shared a classroom with, I think there were 35 of us, so 34 other people. Most of them had kids, and I honestly, hats off to them, because they figured out a system. It's like I had my system for, working through it. And we kind of all had an agreement as a class that at some point someone's going to have a breakdown. And we are there for each other. And okay, oh, it's my turn to have the freak out. Okay, I tanked a practicum, you know, so I'm leaning on my classmates, and then okay, now it's your turn, to have the
Yeah.
to have the freak out.
Were they mostly
And
adult learners, Gina? Were they almost all of them adult learners?
they
They weren't young people in your class, right?
exactly. And
Yeah.
these are people, my program, it's one of two programs in the country that's a transitional program between being a PT assistant and a PT.
Okay.
For some reason, they're really rare. So most of my classmates, many of them had already been managers of clinics, like directors of rehab. And then after we've graduated, our class has a large percentage of people who have started their own thing afterward.
Nice.
So yeah, definitely adult learners,
Yeah.
Did you
30s,
have any
40s.
hesitation before you went, when you were making this decision? Was there like, wow, I don't know if I can go back to school, or were you eager to go back to school? Are you an eager learner? So was there any hesitation to go back at an adult age? Some people would be like, I can't do it at this age.
I think what you said about eager learner, and here's the funny thing, I knew it would be hard, and I didn't know it would be that hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ignorance is
And
bliss, right?
maybe it was good that I didn't know how hard it was actually going to be.
I think
Because
it's like
then,
a I think
graduate school,
that's
then
any
you're
adult class, yeah.
yeah, then you're surrounded by all the smart people who did really well in school.
But I think it's such a great, like, as an adult, I'm starting to go back to school also since last time we spoke.
Oh
And
wow.
it's just interesting because I do think there's a difference of when I got my master's. I started getting my master's when maybe I was around like 25-ish. I'm not sure. But just like going in there, like, oh, I was in college not too long ago. This will be fine. And now I'm so excited to learn new things, but I am just now like, well, I'm 38. That's a lot different from 25. And it's
Yeah.
been a long time since I've been in school, and just the nervousness of, will I retain information the same way? Which I know sounds silly, but I'm like, do I still learn the same way? Am I still
Right. Do I still
gonna
have it?
yeah, like
Yeah.
it's just it's interesting, but I think it's the most amazing thing we do as humans is just continue to learn. So
Oh,
And
absolutely. Can I ask what your master's is in?
So I have a master's, my MBA with project management as my focus. And then I went back for a second MBA because I am a huge nerd and I love school. And I went to focus on HR. But I was working for a company who paid for my master's 100%.
Right. Yeah.
And then our building closed, so I never really got to finish that second round of classes to get my HR under my belt. And so now I'm in realtor school, which is nothing at
Oh wow.
all like any of those things.
Oh my
So,
goodness. All the rules and regs.
yeah.
yeah.
But, I think we talked about this last time. Everything that you do, whether it be a sport or learning an instrument or going to school for something, it all helps you gain knowledge to that next thing that you want to do,
Yeah,
even if it's
absolutely.
unrelated.
Right. Absolutely. Because I felt like I already had the habits of studying.
Mhm.
I know how to sit down and do the work, right? So, then it becomes well, okay, here's the fire hose of information. Like, how do I manage that? And I feel like I had the life experience to be able to do that, and also the life experience to know that, hey, again, our classmates needed to help each other out. We can't do this all by ourselves, and we need to help each other, be that study groups or, what have you. A lot of, lot of time in the labs, a lot of time together in the labs,
Yeah, the
Yeah.
just
support system is
bouncing,
so good.
yeah, bouncing things off of each other. Yeah. Just so we could, retain, and you can't retain it all. It's, can you retain enough, and do you understand it, to the level that you need to apply it.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
practical application is really the important transition there. You also dabble in comedy.
Yeah.
You should
I'm
tell
al-
us about that.
I'm always dabbling in comedy. It feels like it doesn't shut off. Uh, so this was still kind of I think trying to find my voice, and again, if something sounds like fun and I find a class for it, I'm down to clown. Um
Yeah.
so this was over a decade ago. And I took a class. It met at the offices at the Ohio Theater, like the classroom spaces at the Ohio Theater, which was awesome. And I met other wannabe comedians, improv comedians. And then after we took like a series of classes, we formed a little troupe called Squishy. And I wish I could remember it. We had a theme song, and we would we would perform at bars where people really didn't want an improv comedy experience. It was totally for us. We even rented a van and went to Chicago so we could study with an instructor at the Annoyance Theater, which is where, people like Tina Fey studied, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. So, I mean, it was great. It was great fun. And I love the experience. And at the same, I feel like I've moved on. And I also have my little bag of tricks of silliness and, improv skills and what have you.
So who are some of your like favorite comedic influences?
Oh, man. I was thinking about writers this morning, and okay, Tina Fey is brilliant. Amy Poehler, Michelle Wolf. I think she writes or used to write for The Daily Show, but she's got this really freaking annoying voice, and it's kind of her trademark. And she's very transgressive. And I'm blanket. Maria Bamford is also she's yeah, she's really out there. Really, really out there. And a performer that I really enjoy. I see her series on YouTube. I forget the actress's name, but she goes by Philomena Kunk. She's a British actress.
Yes.
Right?
Oh
Have you
my
seen
gosh.
her? Yeah, and
Yeah,
she
she has
does,
a
like, Punk
series.
on Earth and,
Yes.
and of course, in the, great grand style of British humor, she sits down with all these experts in their field in, whatever history, it's very, serious. And she just asks the dumbest questions, and
It
I
is
love
so
it. Oh
funny.
my goodness, yeah. And of
And
course, I was raised on SNL and Monty Python.
yeah.
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 Uh, and I love when like Maya Rudolph and
Yes.
Amy Poehler and all they just get together. Have you ever watched Wine Country, that movie?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
I
like
did. Yeah.
all of them like together and like there's just something about women comedians, especially when they're together like that, that I
It's
think
great.
is just gold. It is so good. There's so many wonderful men comedians, obviously, and I'm a huge Brooks fan. I did like my
Um,
whole film thesis in college on Mel Brooks movies and love him, but I don't know. I just there's something so wonderful and like togetherness when female comedians come together.
I agree.
oh, I know. Madeline Kahn. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
so funny.
Yeah.
Love that.
So, you also were studied under a chef for several years, if I remember correctly,
Yeah,
early on.
this is going back to the turn of the century. That's what do that like 2000, like
Right.
1999 and 2000. And part of my searching, I had wanted to learn how to cook. I knew how to cook some. I didn't know how to cook a lot. So I was starting to just look at cookbooks, and I thought, well, maybe I want to get a job, like doing this. And I start to take these classes at Columbus State for this one teaching chef. And it's like, people who want to learn like evenings and weekends. The end result isn't, I'm going to be a chef. The end result is, I learn these different techniques, starting with knife skills, And then the chef, I remember I think I was applying to a different job, and I called and I think I was asking Carolyn for a recommendation, and she said, "Well, I need an assistant." And there you go. That was the next couple of years, and I got to learn from her and help teach people skills, and I got to learn from the traveling chefs, the teaching chefs who would come in, everything from French chef, barbecue, Indian, all types, Chinese, all types of different cuisines. And it was really special. Oh man, this was, it kind of, so I had a kind of decision to make. Okay, do I want to become a chef? And, physical therapy won out. But when I was thinking about this, I had the opportunity to take a class from an instructor from the Culinary Institute of America. Okay, serious business,
Big
dudes.
deal.
Okay, serious business. And it was a plated dessert class. And I got to see the work and the prep and the freaking stress that goes into producing, an elevated dessert. And I think on some level I realized, this is fun to do. You There are consequences to that amount of stress.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
kind of like the stress. Okay, we made all these, beautiful things that are going into this like cinnamon swirl Napoleon pastry that we just handmade. Keep your freaking hands off of it. Don't eat any more of them. We need some good look. We need the right ones.
Now you understand
So
why
much
they charge
stress.
what they do, right? You understand why they're expensive when you go to these higher end restaurants because you're like,
Oh,
"There's a
absolutely.
lot goes
Right.
into them."
Yeah.
So speaking of stress, can you talk to us about what you or how you decided to open up your own practice and really, once you graduated saying like, I want to be a business owner?
I wanted to be I wanted to be a business owner during my one of my final clinical rotations, and this was the one in Renton, Washington. And I was working for a very, very large PT chain, and I saw their business practices and how they didn't really do right by their patients. And I thought, you know what, this is not sustainable. And quite honestly, okay, here's how I would get through my day. So I was there for 8 weeks, right? In the morning, I was staying with a lovely, lovely RN who I was the first PT that she hosted in her home. She was used to hosting traveling RNs, right? So found her through a Facebook group. So they lived up on a hill, she and her husband. I would leave the house on the hill, go down the valley, across the highway, stop at the Starbucks at the bottom of the hill, get a big old cup of cold brew, and then cold foam brew, man. And then uh, they had loyalty cards. I filled those loyalty cards out. I would finish the drink by the time I got to the top of the hill where the clinic was. Okay, I would work my day and then leave and come down. And right near the Starbucks, there was a sushi place and there was a bar. And I would have dinner at the bar and a couple of drinks. And I thought, I can't do this. I can't do this. So now what? Uh,
Yeah.
so I started with mobile, and I won't bore you with all the details. COVID hit, and so I've done mobile. I lease space now for part of the week. I work a part-time job at another place, and I also decided it would be a good idea to get a massage license because why not get yet another, certification. But yeah, so what I can do is combine physical therapy and massage, and depending on what the person needs, I can put the PT hat on or take that off and we can do massage. And what I'm finding, what's pulling me now, what's tugging at me now, okay, is public speaking. So just within the last year, I joined the National Speakers Association, which back in my past, I belonged to Toastmasters. It's how I met a very good friend that we've been friends with for 20 years. Um, but kind of, the Toastmasters background and the improv background, I think, had a baby, and it's kind of pulling me toward maybe not necessarily speaking about physical therapy per se, but maybe how, people in chronic pain, how can they use their creativity to help manage it. And this is all very up in the air, and it's all very new, and it's cooking. I'm cooking this idea. I'm
Yeah.
learning how to present well and present professionally, and the business things that go along with that.
What do you feel like is going to be your biggest hurdle as you're moving into this public speaking career?
Oh man, getting hired, no doubt.
And have
Yeah.
you had anything pop up since you decided, hey, this is what I want to do next? Have you been gifted those things from the universe to give you some opportunity?
Yes, and quite unexpectedly from my little part-time job that I'm doing. It has opportunities to, for example, I lead 2 to 300 construction workers in a stretching routine every Tuesday. Um, so there are, sometimes, I had to kind of improv a little speech about what I do there, this week because the slides weren't working. So I have a comfort with doing that. And also I have a speaking gig to out of state for it's a health and safety fair for this company. And that's going to be PT, related. And I was actually talking with my boss and saying, well, I don't feel like I should hand out like my business cards about what I'm doing. She's like, yeah, we talk about, like pain and these PT things, that's what our company does. I'm like, yeah. And I was also realizing that's not really what, ultimately I want to talk about. I want to move more into I think being entertaining,
Yeah.
entertaining and motivational and inspirational. And why don't I just pick a harder row to hoe, right? You know, yeah.
It combines
So
all of your background though, like all of your experiences is coming together in this culmination of things, so it kind of makes sense, all these things that you've done to then go on stage. And I'm thinking about little Gina who's in high school who dropped out of band because she was so afraid to fail in front of a bunch of people, is now standing in front of large groups of mostly men construction workers, leading them in groups, and now going to go speak in front of them in, in these symposiums that you're going to go to and entertain and be a motivational speaker, and is not anxious and is using all of her creativity. Like your creativity is shined through in all of these things that you've done, whether you're learning to cook and
mhm.
comedy, PT, like you've found a creative outlet in all of it. And I just think that's really interesting that that's continued to be the case throughout your adult life.
I know, and it's really kind of fascinating because it does feel like it's finally coming together. It
Yeah,
finally feels like it's coming together.
that's
And
awesome.
it's, a couple of things had to happen. Therapy had to happen, and I think menopause. You know, because I just kind of have, of course I'm anxious about, because I want to do a good job and, everything. And at the same time, there aren't lives on the line.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe I think it's perspective. It's the perspective that experience gives you.
Agreed.
Totally.
Agreed.
And so what if you could wrap up all the experiences you've had, wrap up all the journey you've traveled, what are some key like takeaways, some things that you want other people to know when they're on their self-discovery journey?
Well, I think the creative process can be very helpful. The reading that I did surrounding that while I was recovering from surgery, and which involved getting Rick Rubin's book. I think it's called The Creative Act. That it's really important to listen to your intuition And then kind of adding to that. So listening to your intuition involves the ability um to kind of have space to calm down and be able to hear it, right? Because it's very fleeting. So there's that, and also have something to write ideas down on. I use post-it notes, if it's like 2 a.m. and I don't want to get up and turn on all the lights and everything.
You have embodied what it looks like to figure it out and not be afraid to go down any route that calls you. And I think people could benefit from hearing, just like I said, any advice you have for that, because a lot of time it's this frozen feeling of like, I don't know what to do next, and I know I'm not happy with what I'm doing, but I'm so scared to recreate myself or reinvent myself. And
Right.
you've definitely taken some paths to make sure that you're really getting to know you. So I just think you have a lot of wisdom you could share.
Well, thank you. And also, I mean, I haven't quit my day job, right?
Yeah.
And something going into the National Speakers Association, NSA, and I'm taking a course through them called ProTrack. And that's one of the first things that they tell you is basically don't quit your day job. When you're building a speaking business, don't you need to be able to support yourself and have the support around you so you can do this thing.
Don't put too much pressure on it.
Don't put too much pressure on it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
don't, your supports, don't throw them all away. Don't toss them all away. I'm going to do this. Well, you need to be able to eat and have a roof over
Right.
your head.
Right.
Yeah.
Amen to that. Yeah. So Gina, are there some ladies, women in your life that have inspired you, given you real inspiration through your journey and finding yourself that you would like to share with us?
I would. My granny, she was the one every year that would organize the piano sing along. So growing up, which this was during the Depression, she learned piano. And then after she raised 5 kids and she was living with us, she and her husband, my grandpa, were living with us for a time. And I remember she bought an upright piano and she was like learning the songs again and everything. And looking back now, I realize how remarkable that was. And
Yeah.
so I was her buddy, because I was pretty like self-isolated, for a lot of reasons. But she was my buddy. We would go see movies, we would listen to music. She loved Willie Nelson, and she tolerated my love of the Beatles and this, that, and the other. So her, my granny, I think to a lesser extent, my aunt who sat me down and said, "Hey, let's listen to Bob Dylan and Joni Mitchell and a lot of influences from the '60s, right?
Yeah.
Kind of expand the musical horizons." Um, and then I would say now it's kind of like a carousel of different creatives that I'm kind of interested in at the time. Like right now, I'm listening to Saint Vincent. She has a okay. Listen, her name is Annie Clark. She's a guitar shredder. If you've never listened to her,
Mm.
okay. Her aunt and uncle like mentored her. They are jazz singers, Patty and Tuck, and like she was their roadie, so now she's making albums, right? um she Her current album, it's called All Born Screaming. She started with like nothing and would just shred on her guitar for like hours and hours and hours, and it was like writing songs backwards. She said, I don't recommend that for anyone. So she did that. She came out with the album, and then she realized that people in like Brazil, South America, were singing along to all her songs and knew all the words. And she wanted to give back to them and, recognize that. So she re-recorded the album in Spanish.
Oh,
Oh
that's
my
cool.
gosh.
Yeah, because she said, because that was a great idea. So people like that, people like her,
That's
people
not
like
easy.
Laurie Anderson. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not easy to switch a song to a different language.
Yeah.
Like, it changes the cadence of, the lyrics, and that's not an easy thing to do. Good for
Yeah.
her.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Gina, thank you so much for coming on. We've enjoyed hearing your stories. I think a lot of women's going to resonate. We also know from our previous discussions that Gina would really like to put together a little girls band.
I would love
So
to. Yeah.
anyone out there who's kind of getting to know their instruments and would like to hook up with Gina, um, we're going to put all the places that you can find her in the show notes.
And really, what are some of those places? So I know you have a Substack and some other socials, but if they want to come to you for PT or massage therapy, can you share with us all those places they can find you?
Absolutely. Best way to find me is getbackphysio.com. And I realize that does not go well on a license plate. Getbackphysio.com, and I'm on the socials, but that's that has direct ways to contact me. And Substack is ginakim.com.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you, Gina, for coming on. We appreciate you.
Yep. And we will link everything in the show notes so people can find you.
Yeah.
You'll be able to watch this episode on YouTube, stream us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and also now iHeart. Thank you, Gina. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in today.
Thank you,
Have a great rest of
guys.
your week.
Stay
Yeah, it
warm,
was a
wherever
pleasure.
it's cold. Everybody stay warm. Love you.
Love you.